Alright guys, I'm gonna make this video because I wanted to pose a question to you guys. Now we know that Bob Iger, he pretty much backstabbed George Lucas. He is the reason why the Star Wars sequel trilogy and the way Star Wars is right now, he is the reason why everything is on the decline with Star Wars. And I was thinking to myself, Rian Johnson, the last couple of years, has been getting crushed by the fan base. Kathleen Kennedy, she's been getting crushed by the fan base. J.J. Abrams, he's kind of gotten a pass. Bob Iger has really gotten a pass. Now, with all these new revelations with Bob Iger, is he the one? Is he solely responsible for all of this? Now, I don't know if I'm going to put 100% of the blame on him, but I'll tell you what, Rian Johnson, today, just today, you're going to get a little bit of a pass. Bob Iger is absolutely the one that should be falling on the sword. Bob Iger is the one, and he's the reason why Star Wars is in the shape that it is in right now. Bob Iger is more of an enemy to Star Wars fans right now, if you ask me, than Rian Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy. And it always should have been like that. Kathleen Kennedy gets a lot of the blame, and rightly so. So does Rian Johnson. Now, don't get me wrong. Rian Johnson deserves the blame. Rian Johnson, I will never sing his praises when it comes to Star Wars, because he did create The Last Jedi. He did disrespect Luke. He gave us that horrible Canto Bight scene. He made the worst movie in Star Wars history. But Bob Iger is his boss. Bob Iger is Kathleen Kennedy's boss. Bob Iger is in control of everything of Lucasfilm. So everything that gets put on screen, it's his call. And he let all this stuff happen because this was his vision. He wanted the franchise to move in a different direction. Galaxy's Edge, that's definitely on Bob Iger. He decided to make Galaxy's Edge about the sequel trilogy because of the dailies coming in for The Force Awakens. And he's paying the price for that right now. Everyone is. People are suffering with their jobs, and it's not going too well over there at Galaxy's Edge. But for now, I'm just going to keep it in the perspective of the movies, even though there's a much bigger picture to this when it comes to Star Wars. Rian Johnson is going to get a little bit of a pass today. Bob Iger gets no pass. I'm still dumbfounded that Bob Iger, the CEO of the Walt Disney Company, allowed all of this to happen. Now, Bob Iger, he may not like Rian Johnson very much. He won't even acknowledge Rian Johnson's name. Rian Johnson is supposed to be getting the trilogy. Only Kathleen Kennedy has said anything about it, and she has pretty much been silent on it for the most part. Bob Iger hasn't said a thing. I think Bob Iger actually knows that Rian Johnson is a pariah in the fan base. Nobody wants anything to do with him, but maybe they give Rian Johnson some money and they kind of would have to pay him off if they want him to go away. But still, I don't know. When it comes to the movies of it and the meat and guts of it, Rian Johnson is definitely more disliked because he's hands-on making the movie. It's his creation, that kind of thing. But Bob Iger never stepped up to the plate and said, no, we're not doing this with The Last Jedi. I don't know his real true feelings on The Last Jedi, but we all know the fans' feeling on The Last Jedi. Fans didn't like it. But Bob Iger, you're to blame. This is all your fault. And I'm here to say today that when it comes to Star Wars, in my opinion, maybe not yours, Bob Iger is much more to blame for Star Wars as a whole. He should be public enemy number one when it comes to the Star Wars brand and how it's fallen. Being a Star Wars fan, it's tough nowadays. It really is. You know, you have your OT fans, you have your prequel fans, you have your sequel fans, and you have your George Lucas Star Wars fans, and you have your Disney Star Wars fans. There's a fracture right down the middle that happened after The Last Jedi. And Bob Iger could have prevented all of this. Maybe he is a closeted Rian Johnson fan, because he saw The Last Jedi before it was even released. He could have put a stop to this, but he didn't. Now, Kathleen Kennedy, she loves The Last Jedi, but she didn't like what Lord and Miller were doing with Solo, and they had shot pretty much the whole movie. And then she brings in Ron Howard to reshoot the entire movie. So Bob Iger has not managed Kathleen Kennedy. He didn't manage Rian Johnson. That's his problem right there. He seems to be overseeing everything Star Wars, but he's letting them run wild. He's not doing his job. That's why I think he is public enemy number one when it comes to this mess that is Disney Star Wars. He gets, in my opinion, I would say 90% of the blame. 5% to Kathleen Kennedy and 5% to Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams. Because even though they made those movies, episode 7, episode 8, Kathleen Kennedy is their boss and Bob Iger is her boss. Bob Iger needs to take much more blame, because he was hands-on with George Lucas in the beginning, and he told George Lucas no, all of this. So even when Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams met with Bob Iger about episode 7, he had the power to say, let's roll with George's scripts. Even if they didn't want to, he had that power. And yet he said, no, we're getting rid of George Lucas's scripts. We don't need them, or story treatments anyway, because that's what George had. But that's just my thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on this? Is Bob Iger really public enemy number one when it comes to the Star Wars sequel trilogy? I think so. I really do. I think he is more unpopular now than Rian Johnson. That's hard to say, but in a bigger picture, to me, I think that's the way it needs to be. But guys, let me know what you think about all this in the comments. If you're new here to the channel, please hit subscribe to catch future videos from me, and we will catch you on the next video. John Matrixx, out.